Where does it go from vitamins to freak?
Well, of course, every organism in this world has a particular life expectancy, and ours is probably 120 years maximum, and we may one day, most of us may one day reach that. We live in a very delicate ecosystem, and evolution, although it does proceed seemingly by chance and by accident, has succeeded so well because the ecosystem remains perfectly balanced and every organism in it is. Now, if you take the most dangerous organism on the planet and allow it to live 30 years longer than it ordinarily can, or as some of the new hotshot molecular biologists tell us, maybe 1,000 years longer, and there's a fellow profiled in my book who says 5,000 years longer, can you imagine what will happen to our planet? Can you imagine what will happen, not just to plants and the animals that are, in the usual terminology, below us on the scale, but to the human species? I think it's a tremendously destructive thing. I used to believe our civilization would be destroyed by a meteor. Then I used to believe it would eventually be destroyed by a madman with some nuclear device or poison gas. I'm getting worried that it's going to be destroyed by these boys and girls who want to keep us alive for 1,000 or 2,000 years.
I'm okay with you dying prematurely, but if I live to 5,000 years, I think that would be fine. Honestly, that's sort of, when I start looking into the ugly parts of my soul, it's like, if I was feeling the way I'm feeling now, at 5,000, I'd be okay with that.
Well, why
it's
should
selfish, though.
Why should you present that so hesitatingly? After all, the most basic instinct of all living things is self-preservation. The whole focus of evolution depends on two things: species needing to preserve their own individual lives and passing on the DNA. So it's reproduction and self-preservation. What you think as a logical idea about, gee, I want to live forever, is actually biological instinct speaking. You've just intellectualized it. So yes, we all want to live forever. But tell me something, Craig. What's so valuable about your life that you should live forever? And you and 8 million other people living forever, and the demographic problems with that, not to mention what is to me the single most important objection: the number of children will be much, much, much fewer. Greatest joys in my life, perhaps in your life, and the lives of most people, have been this renewal. This renewal through our own children and later through our grandchildren. And our culture needs renewal itself. Every generation creates new ideas, new paradigms, new ways of looking at things. That's how the culture develops. You want to live 5,000 years? You ain't going to change your way of thinking at all. It just, the human mind doesn't work that way. So we need to roll over and leave place for the next generation, in spite of our biological instincts. Yeah.
You have a very interesting meeting with a what do they call themselves? These guys, longevity scientists. What do they call themselves?
Well, I call them crack brains. I spent, as you know from reading the book, 2 days at the University of Cambridge with a fellow named Aubrey de Grey, who's got it into his head that he knows the 7 factors that cause aging changes in cells, and he has a solution for each one. Of course, that none of these things have ever worked out in the laboratory, and Aubrey doesn't understand biological systems well enough to recognize that if you change anything in a biological system, all hell breaks loose as the rest of it tries to accommodate. But he has an entire philosophy about taking your generation, it's a little too late for mine, your generation, and giving them 1,000 years of life by certain regenerative materials that he will inject, manipulating stem cells, genetic reconstruction, all of this sort of thing, specific bacteria. And so what? So what? Think of the demographics of all of this. I have what I think is not a naive viewpoint about life. To me, the very finiteness of life adds to its value. The very fact that we know there's a course we're going to run, and during that course we will see our children, with luck, we'll see our grandchildren, will mature in a particular way that is predictable within certain limits. There's a structure to it. And I find that structure absolutely reassuring.
Where would you stop?
I would stop at the maximum lifespan for our species, which is 120. The geriatricians are working toward that, but more importantly, they're working on the concept they call compression of morbidity. Right now, the way most people die is a long period of decline, and certain diseases enter into it, whether it's stroke or heart disease or cancer or, heaven forbid, Alzheimer's. What compression of morbidity means is to keep the body and the mind functioning at a very high level so that there is very little sickness. You're delaying the onset of these sicknesses until perhaps the last year or two of life. And to me, this is the ideal thing, to live to the potentiality of our species-determined longevity and have those years be useful. Because, you know, there's an awful lot to do. There really is, and it can be great fun.
The book is The Art of Aging, a Doctor's Prescription for Well-Being. I've been speaking with the author, Sherwin B. Nuland, and The Art of Aging, published by Random House.